Welcome to the Women Writing Podcast. I'm your book coach, Liisa Kovala. I'm an author, accelerator, certified fiction and memoir book coach, and the author of Sister's Winter War, Surviving Stutthof, and the upcoming Like Water for Weary Souls. And as a Finnish Canadian, I love my coffee. Take a coffee break with us as we chat about all things writerly with authors and publishing industry professionals. Today I'm having a coffee break with Natalie Morrill, a writer based in Ottawa. Her debut novel, The Ghost Keeper, by HarperCollins Canada, was recognized with the HarperCollins Canada UBC Prize for Best New Fiction and the Canadian Jewish Literary Award for Fiction, as well as being shortlisted for the Vine Award for Canadian Jewish Literature. Her poetry and fiction have been published in Canadian literary journals and included in the Journey Prize Stories anthology. She is the former writer-in-residence for the Northern Initiative for Social Action, or NISA, and edits fiction for Dappled Things magazines. She has an MFA in creative writing from the University of British Columbia, and she lives in Ottawa. Hi, Natalie. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good. It's so nice to see you. Thanks for coming and doing this coffee break with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, so awesome. So we have a little bit of like you're in Ottawa now,
Hmm.
but we have a little bit of a Sudbury connection, I think.
We do. Yeah,
Yeah. So, did you live in Sudbury or what's
I
the?
did. Yeah, I lived in Sudbury for about 3 years, I think from 2013 to 2016.
Yeah, so you know what it's like up here in the north, a little
I do.
different.
Hmm.
Love Ottawa. I went to school there. My daughter lives there now, so I have a real
Oh,
soft spot in my heart for Ottawa. And I think if we weren't here, we'd be there because it's such a beautiful city. So
it's pretty good.
lovely. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope it's okay if I mention that you were married this summer. So
I was.
congratulations.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
It's my
very
big news.
exciting. Yeah, that is really big news, right? So
Hmm.
good. So Natalie, I wanted to ask you because I've kind of followed you for many years. And I wanted to ask you, like, have you always thought of yourself as writer? Like, were you writing as a kid, or is this something that came to you when you were older?
I've always been writing. As a kid, it was something I did kind of compulsively, I think, like writing stories, writing them down on paper, using my parents' computer, their word processor, as soon as I figured that thing out.
Yes.
Yeah, like always, always. And I knew that writing was part of who I am and what I wanted to do in the world. I think perhaps it was because of the way people were talking about it around me, but I think I've always had this sort of strong impression that um, while it's great that I do my writing, like probably not going to be able to support yourself doing that, Natalie. So you better do something else.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely wanted to be a writer, but also sort of had this sense that I better work on other things too. And to be honest, I guess in that respect, the fact that I've ended up spending a lot of my time teaching writing is maybe puts the writing more in the center than I would have thought it
That's
would
true.
be 20 years ago.
Yeah. I think that is messaging a lot of us received. And I think it's
Hmm.
always with the best intentions of, oh, that's a nice thing, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
but it's actually quite remarkable the number of folks I've met who have managed to make writing a central part of their livelihood, although
Hmm.
it might not be book sales per se, but it's you know, teaching and editing and other aspects of publishing. And it's all book related and centered around story. So I think it's incredible that you can make a career out of it, but that we still kind of send those messages to young people that, well, you can't really make a living as a writer. It's quite sad. And you teach writing at Algonquin College.
That's right. Yeah.
So are those writers generally are they students who are interested in writing a novel, let's say, or are they supplementing courses of other kinds and just interested in writing, or what kind of students do you
Hmm.
generally see in your classroom?
I've been teaching within the professional writing program for the last several years. So it's students who intend to write as a significant part of their career, not necessarily creative writing.
Right.
So when they're taking creative writing courses, for some of them, that's exactly what they love. And, the rest of the writing that they're doing, they're like, well, I got to pay the bills somehow. So they're trying to figure that stuff out. But for a lot of them, they do have this sense of like, yeah, I'm going to be working in the public service, or I'm going to be working in corporate communications or something,
Yes.
and I'll take this program. And then I guess I have to take a creative writing class. So we just
Right.
kind of try to help
Yes.
them bring out
Yeah.
that more creative side.
Oh, I think that's great. And I remember teaching creative writing to my high school students. And I was in a school that was a sort of a science tech school.
Mm,
And so a lot of my students were, some very, very creative and creative writing students, like they were really focused on wanting to write. But others, I would say, exactly that these skills will help you write even your nonfiction and your like it'll help all of your writing across the board, even though we're focusing here on the creative elements. I think it's like great for the brain to have that creative side when you're working in other spaces, right? It's amazing.
definitely.
What about like do you have like a writing routine? I always ask people this because I'm so curious about how people fit it into their day, or if they have like some very sort of structured way of going about things, or if it's when I can and different times a year or whatever.
Oh gosh, yeah, I wouldn't say that mine is super structured by any means.
Yeah.
I often wonder, I don't know, would that be better if I could figure out a way to make mine super structured? I think the best thing that I've figured out over the last several years, um, well, first of all, I think it sprang from me realizing like if I spent any substantial amount of time without working on my writing, it really got to me, sort of like, in
Yes.
terms of my sense of self-worth and like
Yes.
identity and like what am I doing kind of. So that was like I can't do that. I can't, like sort of be like, oh well, come Christmas holidays, I'll get to have some time writing. Like it just feels like ugh, all this wasted time when I could have been writing. Um, so one of the best things I think I figured out in light of that was that if I assign myself a task of like you're going to do 10 minutes of writing a day, um it actually gets stuff done. I think my hesitation to do that in previous years was like, I'm working on longer projects, so like to get into them, I'm gonna have to have at least an hour or two, to sort of like maybe read what I wrote yesterday, figure out like where we are in the plot, like keep going, this kind of thing. So I was very skeptical about whether having like short periods of time would actually work. But I found it's been really good. It's been really, really good.
Do you find that those 10 minutes turn into 20 or 30 or whatever? Like,
Often they do.
often they do. Yeah.
Yeah. But
That's
even
so good.
even if they don't, it's
Yeah.
it's okay. Like I would have, again, a couple of years ago would have said like I can't get anything done in 10 minutes. There's no point. Um, but I do. I get a little bit of writing done, and I think what's been surprising to me, especially with the longer projects, is that actually like dipping into them in that tiny way each day keeps me immersed in a way that I used to think that I needed those big chunks of time for.
Mhm.
Just the fact that I've spent a little bit of time on a project
Yeah.
like every day for the last week means that my brain is really in it, and
Yes.
it helps me on the following day to keep going.
That's such good advice to do it in those little tiny chunks. Um, I know like what I, often with students do little 10 or 15-minute writing prompts. And I'm always impressed with what people can produce in such a short time. Like when the clock's ticking, you go. Like you
Hmm.
just do it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that consistency is amazing. But I hadn't thought about it as being because you're so you haven't really left that your project. You're there every day with it. So you're still working on it and your brain is still
Hmm.
working on it when you're doing other things. So
Exactly.
yeah. And whereas when I leave it for a week or something and I come back, I'm like, oh, what was I doing? Who's that person
Hmm.
again?
Yeah.
What was I gonna do? Like it's there. I lose that momentum, but even that little 10-minute bits would keep you there. That's great
Oh, yeah.
advice for folks. So good. Oh my gosh. Yes. And do you have a particular place where you like to write? Do you have a space that is your like an office or a desk or do you just like are you a person who can write anywhere?
I don't, I guess there's a part of me that's like, surely in theory you can write anywhere, Natalie. But
Right.
um, I think like I, uh, I tend to do well if I leave the house,
Hmm.
um, which is unfortunate because it's much
Yeah.
cheaper to stay home and make my own
Right.
coffee.
Right.
But yeah, I do tend to do well if I like go somewhere out of the house,
Yeah.
sit down and be like, this is your writing time. But the nice thing about, again, these like very short 10-minute spurts is it does make it a lot easier to just do it in between tasks.
Yes.
So yeah, if I'm at home, if I'm working on, things for my teaching and I finished a bunch of marking and I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? I'm like, oh, just first let's write for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Then it does seem like it's anywhere. But I think for like, if I'm really going to sit down, like if I'm going to do something like, if I'm going to start a new round of revisions or read through the last version of a manuscript or something, it really does help me to have a dedicated space, say out of the house or I'm working on having a proper office in my house. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, a little
Yeah.
bit flexible.
Yeah. I feel that too. I think I'm sort of the same in the sense that um if I have a couple hours and I can go to a coffee shop, I can get a lot of things done. There's nothing
Mhm.
to like it's the only reason I'm there. That and the chai tea
Exactly.
latte. Like that's it.
Yes.
But like the office, I mean, this is the first time I've really had a nice space for an office, but I don't find I end up writing here as often. I do a lot of editing
Mm.
and other things, and
Hmm.
it's a great space to have everything. Like I know where my stuff is. That's a new for me to be able to go and like and find it. But to sit and write, I feel like, yeah, you can kind of you just need a comfy place to sit. I think the dream
Hmm.
is always that people want this spectacular writing space, but it's not always possible. And I don't even know that it's really necessary. I mean, I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I mean, I
I
think
think
it's just
one
whatever works, right?
it is. Like one thing that I found like with my first book when I was working on it, if I could find a place to go that did not have internet access, that was kind of
Oh, yeah.
glorious. Because
Yeah.
then, once I got tired when my mind was wandering, like my temptation is always check email, check
Right.
social media, just like look at the news or something.
Sure.
I didn't have the option. So like I could like stare at the wall if I
Yes.
wanted, but
Yeah.
eventually just I'm like the only thing to do is come back and keep writing. So
Yeah. And now
that
they
was
have
actually
apps
quite
for
good.
that where they'll shut down your,
This
but I've
is
never
true.
tried any of that. And then I have tried one of those apps where the tree grows. Have you tried that where you set the timer
I
and then the
did.
tree grows? And it was
I have
cute,
tried
but
that.
didn't really keep using it. So I don't know.
I know. It's sort of with all of those things. I don't know if you know that Frog and Toad story where they're trying not to eat all the cookies and they like
Uh,
put them in the box and then they tape up the box and they put the box on top of the shelf. But it's always like we could take the
yeah.
box down from the
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of those sort of like self-control measures, there's always an
Yeah.
element of like, but you still need to do it, Natalie.
That's
Like you
right.
have to, not break through all of these
Yeah.
self-containment elements that I've put in
Yeah.
place.
I feel this whole conversation is very validating right now. I feel seen. I feel like, okay, it's all good, it's fine. And the book still
Mm.
gets written because you just keep going forward with
Keep
it.
going. Little chunks.
So your first book was called The Ghost Keeper, a historical fiction. Can you tell us a little bit about that story and where it came from?
Yeah, so the story, it's set kind of before and after the Second World War, primarily in Vienna in Austria.
Yeah.
And it follows a gentleman who's looking after the neglected Jewish cemeteries in Vienna.
Yeah.
Um, and following the Anschluss, obviously his life kind of falls apart as a Jewish person.
Yeah.
And he and his family are forced to separate as they flee the country. But sort of improbably, they do end up back in Vienna, at which point he has to confront a lot of the betrayals, I suppose, of
Yeah.
one of his closest friends, as well as just the like the long, I guess, echo of all of that tragedy,
Yeah.
and his place in it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, my relation to the story, I guess the most obvious one is that I when I was a kid, we lived in Vienna.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, and one of the cemeteries that's at the heart of the story was very close to my house.
Mm.
Um, as a kid, I couldn't see into it. Like the cemetery's behind brick walls with kind of glass and barbed wire on top. Honestly, it looks
Yeah.
like a prison.
Yeah.
Um, So I couldn't see into it easily as a kid, but I think my parents, one of them, both of them maybe must have like lifted me up to look over.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I mean, it's very similar to if you open the book kind of on the first page description of what the cemetery is like,
Mm.
with like the headstones sort of toppled all over on top of each other, everything very overgrown. Um, so it was this very strange, mysterious, sort of hidden place. And I think my parents must have done their best to explain to me, why it was the way it was and why it was so enclosed, sort of to keep out vandals
Right.
and yet there wasn't really a community to look after it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I was very struck by that image, but I think also I would have been, I don't know, 7 or 8 at the time. And I think it was around when I was first starting to understand or be taught about what the Holocaust was.
Yes.
Um, so I think I must have kind of conflated them in a way that was technically incorrect, but which
Right.
ultimately, as an adult, I think I realized was sort of evocative, in the sense that it's a 19th century graveyard, the one that we were looking at.
Yeah.
So all of the people buried there, died under normal circumstances, had
Right.
families bury them and everything.
Yeah.
So by no means were they like victims of a genocide,
Right.
but I think for myself as a child, I sort of thought that that was the case.
Right.
And then when I realized that that was by no means the case, um, I still realized, but there's something about the hiddenness of that place, the almost like the deliberate attempt to hide it and forget it,
Mhm.
that was spoke to me very deeply, and also, um, I don't know, it was just like all the imagery of it around it was highly suggestive to me of like story and character. So I think it sort of sprang from that. I'm sure, always there are like many different seeds that stories come from, I'm sure. But I think that was kind of where the most obvious birthplace of the story came from.
Love that. I love that you were such a young girl and that image, that place stayed with you for so long that you were compelled
Mhm.
to like it inspired to some extent this story. Like to me, that is like I'm always fascinated by how things that we encounter in our life, whether it's people or places or events, and they just sort of percolate in the back of our mind for decades even. And then through
Mhm.
story, they come out in a new way. And it's like I don't know, it's you can't even plan for that. It's like, because
No.
when I was reading the description of the book, I thought, oh, I wonder if you've been to Vienna. And of course, it's that was an important time in your life too. Like you're quite impressionable at 7 to be there, and then how old were you when you returned to Canada?
Uh, Almost 11, I think. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
10,
So a
10,
couple
11.
years there. So you really understood in the landscape.
Yeah, I think we moved there when I was
Yeah.
6, and
Yeah.
then yeah, came back when I
Yeah.
was.
So really formative. And then to be able
Mhm.
to write about it later, you did you go back in between, like when you were writing this book, did you go back to Vienna or did you just
I
draw on
did not.
your
I did
memory?
not.
And yeah.
No, I wish I could have. I feel
Yeah.
like for a lot of people, they're like, well, of course you use your research as the excuse to go to this place. And I just like wasn't in a position at
Yeah.
that point
It's not
financially to
always
figure that out.
possible. But luckily we have
No.
all that access to everything
Oh my
on the
gosh.
internet and images and
It's
video, and
amazing.
like you have everything at your fingertips. Of course,
Yeah,
I love going to a place if I can, but it's not always possible. But
it's not always
you lived
possible.
there, like
I
that's
did.
really
Yeah.
different from even just visiting for a couple of days.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because I think as a kid you get so many of these like emotionally intense kind of like impressions of a place with
Yes.
just like small key like and especially like there's wonderful concrete sensory details. But I had to do a lot of fact checking
Right.
because I was like,
What
I
do I
remember it that
remember?
way, but like I have no idea if that's actually how it was.
Yeah.
And actually, it was quite striking with my memory of that cemetery, because like I had this very vivid memory of again seeing like what it looked like when I saw it, but I was like, did was that like a false memory? Did I
Right.
like get that from somewhere else? I can't remember. So when I started researching the cemetery, it was one of the first resources I came across was a blog by kind of a historian activist in Vienna who is involved in preserving the cemetery. And she had all kinds of photos. And first of all, it was like immediately affirming
Yes.
because it was like, that's what I saw, that's what I
Yes.
remember.
Yes.
Um, And then also she was like had interviews and things where she was like, it's a real problem that this place is neglected because we've got like rabbits and foxes who are digging up the bones.
Oh,
And I was like,
wow. Wait a
stop right there,
minute.
lady. This is this is an opening. So
Right?
yeah,
I
it's
love that.
fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love a cemetery. I just think they are, like you say, ripe with stories. I, I mean, I was just visiting a cemetery on Malcolm Island like a week ago,
Hmm.
today, a week ago, and just reading the headstones and the dates and just looking at how some of them have worn and sort of sunk into the ground. And like, it's just, I mean, there's so much to be said for the stories behind every single one of them, right? Like it's
Hmm.
just whether
Yeah.
it's like the real person, but then all the imaginative ideas you have coming from that as well. Just think they're fantastic, and that person spent time researching and trying to preserve this place that you intimately kind of know from as a child, like, and then
Hmm.
you wrote a book. I think like all cool things. Love that. So the you wrote The Ghost Keeper, and can you tell us a little bit about, like, that was your first book coming out, and can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you as a sort of a, I'm not sure if you had other things published before that, or as a sort of a first time novelist. What was that experience like for you? Was it all that you dreamed of?
Oh gosh. Okay. I have to go back a few years now because this was, I
Yeah,
think about, yeah, like it was 2018 that the book came out.
yeah,
I had short stories published prior to that, which, is wonderful, but it does feel different. It's not the kind of event, I suppose, that having a
yeah,
book come out is.
yeah.
Um, it was, I feel like I was really lucky in so many ways. Like it was, the publisher, I think, believed in the book. So they were doing a lot to help get it reviews.
Yeah,
They were like submitting it for awards and things. So that was it felt good to sort of have the publisher on side.
yeah,
Um, and it was really cool to sort of see how people I was connected with became excited about the book as well.
yes.
And, sort of without me ever prompting them, were like sharing it on social media and things and
Yay.
all of that. It was really amazing. Um, so I think, in so many ways, it was really incredible. I don't even know if I fully appreciated at the time
Right,
how difficult it is to get, reviews in major newspapers and things. And that like that was I was so lucky that that happened. Um, so yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I think the weird thing about novels and books of any kind, and I think any writer who's been through this would relate to this, um, is that you get barely any interaction with your audience. Like, you've put this thing out into the world and someone may or may not be reading it at any given
right,
time. And you probably won't hear about it, even if they are. Like, even if they loved it. Even, most people who love a book are never gonna like go online and post about it.
right.
They'll just tell
True.
their friends or be like, that, what a wonderful book. And
Yes.
yeah, so it can be a little bit disorienting, I suppose, in that
Yeah,
sense of like I just genuinely have no idea like what's
yeah,
what's happening with the book. Um, but no, I think the version of the novel that was published, as far as, having worked with the editors at HarperCollins, um, I was really pleased with. It was a much better book, I think, when it went out than when they accepted it.
right.
And it genuinely, I did get to feel, as we were signing off on things, that like there's nothing else I want to do on this book. Like
Yes.
I
Yeah,
could tinker, but like it's out of my hands now. It's done.
yeah,
So that was a really great feeling, just sort of knowing that like apart from reception and all of that, that I was like, I think this was the book that it needed to be,
yes.
and God willing, it will find its readers. And
Yeah,
and I think it largely did. So that
yeah.
was that was
Amazing.
really good.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I think that's the thing, like, that initial publication, and there's quite a hype at that moment, and maybe for the first year there's a lot of action or maybe interviews and various things, but then it starts to taper off a little bit, and it is a long game. So it's been out for
Mhm.
a while, and it's
Mhm.
continuing to have readers, it's continuing to touch people, it's continuing to speak to the issues of the day. Like I think we sometimes forget that because we're kind of thinking of like, oh, what's my next book, what's my next thing, what's my next, but I
Mhm.
but it's out in the world and doing its
Yeah.
work, right? Like I think that's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, it's lovely. um so now you're working as a creative writing teacher. What are you working on, any particular project at the moment? Is there something that is percolating, or what's happening in your writing worlds?
I'm working on a few different things right now. I'm trying to finish I guess, a good version of a long short story
Okay.
novelette, novella thing, so that I can try to find a home for it. But first, it has to be better. And I have a whole bunch of ideas kind of for similar pieces, which on the one hand is terrible because that's not what your agent wants to hear, that you're working
Right.
on, short stories
That's
and novelettes and things.
right.
Um, so I'm hoping that like if these work out, that I would have like enough of them that they might, kind of go together in
Yes.
a collection.
Hmm.
Um, so that's sort of the big thing that's occupying my creative space right now. But also been thinking kind of about kids books as well. This is
Okay.
something that I, way back when I was doing my MFA, I was working on a lot of children's literature, but I sort of left it behind to work on, adult fiction.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I had a conversation with my agent about that, and she seemed very open to me submitting her
Oh,
children's literature.
okay.
So we're gonna see if we can get back into that.
That's
Um,
exciting.
yeah, but for the time being, it's kind of short stories, long short stories,
Yes.
with historical settings,
Yes.
and kind of like fantasy elements, which is a little
Oh,
bit new.
a little
Um,
hybrid happening right
yeah,
there.
yeah, and
And
it's tricky because I think with a historical fiction novel, the amount of research that goes into it, it feels like it's worth your while because it's a novel.
yes.
But if it's like, a 30-page story and I have to do all of this research to get into the period, it's, the justifying the time that goes into it is a bit tricky. So I think it's still going to be worth it. But again, in my head, it's just like, oh my gosh, and it's only a short story.
Right,
So
right.
we're working
But
on
I
things.
guess that's maybe the language that needs to change, is the only part, right? Like
That's right.
like it's a great short story and deserves the attention and the research and all of those things. Because I mean, if and then you put a bunch of short stories or shorter pieces together, and now you have a full length book. I mean, it's all the it's different, like it's all good. It's all good. I don't
Very
know. I feel
hopeful.
like actually, I do write short stories too, but um, I find that it's a difficult form because it's condensed and you have to get
Mm.
there fast, and like you say, there's so much work and research that has to go into it, even though it's a shorter piece. Like it's a hard form. So I admire
It
you that
is.
you are tackling it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I mean,
Amazing.
like, there was a time when I really didn't respect short stories the way that I ought to. I think, I spent most of my time reading novels, and I sort of
Right,
had the impression that if you understand novels, you understand short stories. Like,
right,
it's just a smaller version of the same thing.
right.
And I think it was during my MFA I really realized, like, I am not, I don't know how to write short
Yeah.
stories. Um, and I had to read, like, really, really, intentionally spend a lot of time reading short stories,
Mhm.
and think just like it was
Yeah.
amazing to me. I was like, the structure is
Ah,
so
yeah.
apparent and so
Yes.
crucial with short stories, that I think, it can only serve you, I think, as a fiction writer to attempt them, like to try to
Yes.
figure out how to do them, even if it's
Absolutely.
not your preferred genre.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I
and
totally agree.
I think it's for me, I guess right now, um, it just seems like there are certain ideas that are novels and there's certain ideas that are not, but they're still really cool.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to make space for these ideas that I don't think should be novels, but I think
Yes.
are very cool and deserve to exist.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And I like that idea that you like writing short can help a novelist write long. And I also
Hmm.
think like writing poetry, I
Hmm.
admire poets because they can condense language right down to the word or the line, and that can really help in prose. So I think like all of tackling all the different genres can help a writer just expand their understanding of the craft and hone it. So I think I mean, write the short stories. Yeah, I think that's so great. I mean, I totally understand you about the historical research though, because those
Oh my
rabbit
gosh.
holes, they are never ending. And I'm so fascinated and interested that I want to read everything, even though I know this will never end up in this book, but I have to know this. I have to understand it. I had somebody
Yeah.
comment yesterday on something, just a small little fact, and as soon as they questioned the fact, I thought, oh, I don't know, I can't remember.
Well,
I read
yeah.
that like I wrote this before the pandemic, so I had to go and look it up again, and I'm like, oh no, it's okay, it's fine. But every little detail can put you into a little tizzy that oh I got it wrong.
It's true. And I find that, there are things that I don't know that I don't know.
That's true.
That, I just writing, I'm like, well, it doesn't even occur to me that I need to question how that
Right.
particular thing would have worked. But then I come across a resource somewhere that's like, oh, that didn't exist at the time. People did
Yes.
this. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh no, that was
Yes.
like a whole thing that the people
Yes.
were doing. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it I think exactly like one of the best things that one of my early like mentors in my MFA was telling me was, yeah, research is important, but the research is at the service of your writing and you have to
Yeah.
write. Like it's not you're
Yes.
not here to just be a historian and doing all
That's
of the
right.
research.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
like it you have to come back to the writing, but it does always feel like, but what if there's something I missed? What if there's something I
It's
got
true.
wrong? And
Yes.
if I just read one more book or, article or something, then I'll be
Right.
safe.
Yeah, I'll be safe. I'll just check this one more thing. And
Hmm.
yeah, and at some point you just have to accept that you've done everything you can and you're gonna, some things are gonna be wrong and they're not gonna be quite perfect. But ultimately it's about the characters and what they're going
Yeah.
through and the emotional aspect of those things. But I know as historical authors, we want it to be right. We really
It's
do,
true.
folks. We're
And
trying.
I found like I find it has different stakes for different stories.
Mm,
Like for the Ghost Keeper, I think for a couple of reasons, it felt like the stakes were very high. I mean, first of all, because it was a story that was about the Holocaust.
yes.
Like I really wanted to get things right.
Yes.
Um, and also it was, barely, but yes, within living memory for a lot of people,
Yes.
for, a certain number of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I knew for that reason, like it would stand out to people if I
Yes.
got things wrong. And then also it just felt like this is the kind of thing that you don't want to get wrong, not
Yes.
simply for aesthetic reasons, but
Yes.
just for,
Yeah.
ethical reasons as well.
Absolutely.
Um, Whereas, my book that my agents sort of has on submission right now,
Yeah.
is also historical fiction, but it's from a couple of centuries earlier.
Okay.
So not living memory, um, no genocide.
Right.
So,
Yes.
like it just feels like, yes, I want to get
Yes.
things right, but the stakes are different. Like
Yes.
it's I want to write a really good story and
Yeah.
have it reflect the facts insofar as I'm able to.
Yes.
But if I get something wrong, it just feels like it's the consequences are a little bit less
Agreed. Yeah.
serious.
I agree with that for sure. I think it's kind of a project by project
Hmm.
basis and yeah, and just like you say with anything World War II, we have so much literature about the Holocaust, about battles, about like we just have like footage. We have so much
Yeah,
at our fingertips. Whereas, like a couple of centuries ago, okay, we do have material and we have experts and those kinds of things, but we just don't have access to the same type of, understanding of day to day life, even
exactly.
that we do, from the 30s and 40s. But oh,
Hmm.
I'm excited for your book to be on submission. Let's see. We'll all collectively keep our fingers crossed for you, toes
Thank
crossed for you.
you.
Um,
Very
we
hopeful.
were talking about this before we started recording. How is that feeling of submitting and then okay, there, like you're waiting now. How's that? How are you
Hmm.
feeling? How's that moment in time?
Oh, I mean, it's tricky. I try not to think about it too much. I
Yeah.
try just to like, I've got other projects to work on and work
Yes.
on those. And I mean, I think that's the advice I'd give anyone who asked me. So I'm trying to put it
Yeah.
into practice of just
Right.
like, just work on your writing.
That's right.
Um, I because my publisher for The Ghost Keeper has sort of a right of first refusal, so they're the ones looking at it right now. They're the
Okay.
only ones who are looking at it.
Yeah.
So we'll find out if they want it.
Right.
I'd love for them to want it, but my
Yes.
agent's very good at sort of being like, well, Natalie, like there's so many cool
That's
like
right.
editors who I could bring it to if they don't want,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
That's right.
Um, so it is nerve-wracking because I mean at this point, it's a very small circle of people who have seen the book at all.
Mm,
It's my agent and me and my family members saw an earlier draft of it.
yeah.
Um, so I almost at this point like have a hard time being confident in how good the book is.
Right.
Like I did reread it again recently, and I was like, oh no, I think it is good. I
Yeah.
think it's good. So that was a
That's a good
relief.
feeling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But like you can't, in some ways it's completely out of my hands.
Yeah.
Like if this editor, you know, they may see flaws in it that I haven't been able to see yet. And if that's the case, hopefully then my agent can work with me and we can make the book
Sure.
better.
Yeah.
It may simply be that something about the book makes it a tough sell that I have,
Mhm.
not perceived.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's tough because I don't know, I know that my agent submitted it. I
Yeah.
don't know if the editor was like, yeah, I'll get to it right away, or if she was
Right.
like, I'll be able to read this in 3 weeks.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I I just sort of have to I guess yeah, like trust that so far it's been where it needed to be, that
Yeah.
things have happened at the right times. So yeah, it'll it's sort of cool to think about it encountering a new reader for sort of the first
Yes.
time in a long
Yeah.
time.
That is cool.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to just be positive about that. I'll
Yeah.
have a new person reading the book and they're going to
Yeah.
be, really thinking about who is this for? Do I see a place for this in the market? And that'll be a cool thing to reflect on, kind of, I
Yeah.
guess, regardless of what their response is.
I think that's a great approach to it. I feel like that once we send it out, it really is out of our control. And there's so many factors in the
Hmm.
publishing industry that are not part of our mindset because we're writing and yes, we try to educate ourselves about the marketplace and all of those things, but there's so many myriad of reasons of why somebody might say yes or no at a given time, like that same book a year from now or a year before or whatever. Like there's so many,
Yeah.
so I love that idea. Just keep working at it, keep writing your other things, and that you have somebody else going to read it, and like that's a beautiful way of thinking of it. And I love your agent's attitude too. That okay, then there's steps after this too, right? That there's
Yeah.
it's not a door that you close and that's it. It's just I think that's good for people to understand. It's such a process. It's a waiting game. It takes for like publishing takes forever. Like even when a book
So
gets
slow.
accepted, it's often 2 years before it is in print.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
Yeah.
the author has been writing it for years, probably sometimes,
Hmm.
especially historical fiction writers are writing for years. And maybe this is a book that they wrote 10 years ago and have written other things in between. So, like, it can be a real long game,
It
this whole
is.
process. Like, why do we do this again? What are we doing?
Gosh. I mean, yeah, no, it's slow. And I think the thing that's tricky, especially if you are someone who, feels probably as we all do to a certain extent, and sort of anxiety about like, what's going to happen with the book, is it does feel like it's kind of all behind a curtain, like as it's happening.
Yes,
Like, I don't know what the editor is thinking. I don't know
that's
if they're looking at the book at the moment. I don't know if like the lack of response is because they haven't looked at it yet or because they're like halfway through it and they got distracted by something else. I
right.
don't know if they have already formed their opinion. None of that is visible. All you get is a little, response at the end.
Yes,
Um, so
right,
that's, it's I don't think there's anything that can make that um, completely palatable for
right.
most people.
Yeah,
But I think, just recognizing that that is the norm in publishing, that they take a
Yes.
long time and they're not going to tell you what they're up to as you're waiting. You just wait until you
Yes.
find out.
Yeah.
It at least sort of reassures you a little bit that like
Yeah. This is
this
how it
isn't weird.
goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's strange and this is how it goes. Keep writing.
Hmm.
Keep focusing on the
Yeah.
next thing and staying positive.
Hmm.
It's kind of exciting too though to be at that stage where you have a book that's ready to go out and like that in itself is a huge accomplishment. I saw some stats once. I should print them off about the number of people who want to write a book versus the
Hmm.
number of people who actually start writing versus the number of people who actually finish. Like it goes
I was like, I
exponential to
bet
this
that's a
tiny
gigantic
little.
drop off when you get to
Yes,
the
it's really dramatic. And I think, oh, okay, like so just finishing is
Mhm.
like this huge accomplishment. People should feel
Oh, huge.
absolutely proud of that first draft that they like achieved that because
Yeah.
it's huge commitment.
Oh
And
my
then every
goodness.
stage after that, it's like, okay, get another draft done,
Yeah.
get another draft done.
Yeah.
Like it's, you
I
kind of
mean,
have to be your own champion, I think.
do. And I think, for a lot of people, they maybe don't realize this until they try it for the first time, that it's starting a book. I mean, I'm not going to knock it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but there are so many people who I know who have started half dozen books and
Yeah.
never finished one.
Yes.
Um, because, you get 20, 30, 50 pages in and you're like, actually, I think the book I wanted to write was something else.
Right.
So yeah, like
Yes.
it's that's I think almost like the default position
Yeah.
for writers.
Yeah.
So yeah, like getting to the end of something is huge. Like you're gonna
Right.
have so many people attempting the same thing who just don't get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I totally
very much
agree.
pat self on back
Yeah, for
if
sure.
you've gotten to the end.
Yeah, I feel like there's that new idea that like you can get into it and you're
Mhm.
excited and that you're revved up and I'm going to go do all the things. And then like you say, somewhere in the beginning, 50 pages, 100 pages, something, it's like, oh, this is really hard. And I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm
Yeah.
exhausted by it. And that other shiny idea over there looks
Mm.
amazing. And actually, that's what
Hmm.
I should be writing. Like it's hard
Hmm.
to be in that middle where it's like, oh no, I just have to actually sit down and do this work. And it's not
Yeah.
fun anymore. Like I don't want to say that writing isn't fun ever. It is, but it's also work and it's also making yourself sit down and for me getting like I say out to a coffee shop and just
Yeah.
just focus because
Hmm.
and then I think there's often when you hit another point where you're like, oh, I'm closing in on the end and there's a little bit more energy again because you're like, oh, okay, I can get there. Like you see the light at the end of the tunnel almost. So there's something
Definitely.
about that, I think. Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's exciting. So it's all it's a bit of a roller coaster, I guess.
For me, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have any advice for writers who are maybe thinking about writing, thinking about they a lot of people have that book in the back pocket where they are like, okay, I someday I'm going to write this book. Oh,
Right.
someday when I retire, I'm going to write. There's a lot of folks who have that. And do you have any advice about like how do we get started? What's the next step for those folks who have that idea?
Get started. I think I would always encourage people to try getting started sooner rather than later. I think, you know, there's a million different ways into a book.
Mm,
And maybe part of the process at first is going to be figuring out which one works for you.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
for some people, it's going to work really, really well to sort of sketch out a whole outline of the book that you want to write, um, which can be like this wonderful kind of creative process in itself of
yeah,
like, oh yeah, and I want to include this, and then this is going to happen, and then you sort of see like a 40,000 foot version of the
yeah,
story, and you can kind of be like, oh, actually, okay, I need to move this part around, and there's a lot of work that can happen at that point. Whereas I think for other people, their best way into it is to like, pick a scene that you're really excited about and try
yeah.
writing that scene and let things kind of branch out from there.
Amazing.
Um, so
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just the first thing would be figure out a way to start, and don't be afraid to try different ways in.
Yeah,
That's
so good.
completely normal. Like that, I do the same thing, write a little bit, do an outline, write a little
Yeah.
bit more,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Um, and then in talking to writers who are working on books for the first time, I think one thing that they don't realize is how much permission you have for the first draft to be like
Yes.
garbage,
Yes.
basically.
Right.
Like it's, it doesn't have to be good yet, and they're like, oh, but like my first two pages, I worked so hard on them and they're so wonderful.
Right.
And, everything after that is not as good. And I think I need to go back and make these other parts better before I keep going. And I'm like, no,
Right.
you don't. You
No.
don't turn around. Just keep going. You can put in brackets, make this interesting and like keep going. It can be like the sketchiest version of the scene where you're like, the dialogue in this section is completely cheesy. Great, it's done. Keep going. You will know when you come back and revise that you need to change that part. The job sort of with like the first version of the book, as far as I'm concerned, is to like figure out how this story wants to work.
Right.
So yeah, I think again, if you haven't had experience with that before, um, I'm like always reassuring writers, like it doesn't have to be good yet. Like it just has to get done. So that's,
Yeah.
I think, if you can give yourself that permission,
So good.
it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, that is so good. I'm working with a client right now who used this term, and I was so shocked because I had never heard it before. I'm like, how after decades have I never heard this word? But she calls it her first draft a zero draft. And I thought that's
Oh,
brilliant. It's all about exactly
yeah.
what you described. It's a zero draft. It's sort of just working it out. And I thought, oh, I'm totally using that word. That's a new one to me, but it's a great way to just take the pressure off of that first draft. And
That's so
for
good.
sure. And I loved what you said about starting before you're ready. Like
Hmm.
just go.
Just
I think
go.
that's life advice for everything. Like
Exactly.
we're never
Yeah.
ready for
You're
anything.
never going to be ready. Just do it
No,
now. Like
just
you'll
do
learn as
it.
you go.
That's
That's the
right.
only way that anyone learns writing, I think, is by
Oh,
is by doing it. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So good. Great advice. Well, I really wanted to thank you for coming and having your coffee break with me today. And I so enjoyed this conversation. And The Ghost Keeper, everyone should read it. It's with HarperCollins. And we're all going to keep our fingers and toes crossed that you get great news either now or soon or later. But, we'll all look out for that next piece. And happy short story writing. That's very
Oh, thank
fun.
you. Thank you.
Love
I'm very
it. See,
excited.
now you've told everybody that you're working on it, so you have to.
I gotta
That's
keep
another thing I
going.
like to do is tell people I'm doing things because then I feel a little pressure that I actually have to follow
Mm,
through.
that's right. That's right. I gotta do it
Oh, well,
now.
but we can also change our minds too, right? We'll see. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Natalie. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been wonderful being on your show.
Thanks. Are you interested in pursuing your book writing dreams? Join me for my next group book coaching session starting on October 19th and running for 8 weeks. This session is ideal for individuals who have an idea for a novel or a memoir and need guidance to get started, or who have a draft and need a solid plan for revision. You will receive weekly group book coaching sessions and individual feedback every week on your submissions, weekly goal setting, and a supportive community of women writing. Hop on over to lisakovala.bookcoach.com for more information, or email me at lisabookcoach@gmail.com to register. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing. Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.